Hello, welcome to Craig Loves to Crochet. My name is Tonya and this is Abby. Thank you for modelling my hat, Abby.
Okay.
So today we're going to learn how to make this gorgeous peacock eye stitch or broomstick lace beanie hat. It's an incredibly beautiful hat, a gorgeous stitch. As you probably know, I really am a fan of this stitch. It's a really versatile pattern and design, so you can make it to fit any size head, and I'll show you how to do that on the tutorial. It can be used with any type of yarn. I've actually used a 4-ply yarn because this yarn suits the stitch and the style of this hat, but I have seen various people who've made my other patterns who have used other cottons, and it looks absolutely gorgeous too. Right, what will we need for this project? Well, the yarn that I've chosen is by Rico, the Creative Reflection range, and this here is a 50-gram ball. That's all you'll need, 240 meters, so that's the amount that you'll need for this project. The yarn itself is a fine yarn. We would call this a 4-ply in the UK, so it's a fine yarn, like a sports weight, a baby sports weight yarn. So you can really choose any kind of yarn that you would like to, but I've chosen this one, and the reason for that is because it's such a beautiful variegated yarn with like a shimmery sparkle in it running all the way through, and it makes it just that little bit special for this project and really a classy look for this stitch. So this is the yarn that I've chosen. We'll need, I think if you've followed any of my patterns before and my designs before using the broomstick lace or the peacock eye stitch, you'll know by now that I use this little plastic dowel, but any dowel you can use basically. This one here is a 20mm needle. It's a perfect size for this project. We'll be using a 5mm crochet hook. In UK that would be a size 6, or US that would be a H crochet hook. This is a metric crochet hook, so it's 5mm. Very large hook for the fine yarn that we're using, but for this design and this stitch it's absolutely perfect, I find anyway. It gives it a really lovely definition. We'll also be using or needing a pair of scissors, as always. Just pop those out of the way, and a yarn needle as always, and last but not least a measuring tape measure, which we're going to be using in a minute. It's absolutely crucial really for this pattern, this design. Okay, so let's get started. Right, before we start, I've brought Hattie along just to introduce her. She's my baby head for my models, for my baby hats, but she'll be very useful for just the explanation of this hat design. Now usually when we're crocheting a hat, we would crochet the top bit first and then work our way down. Well, we're doing it the opposite way around for this design. Basically because the nature of the stitch doesn't really allow us to do it like that, so working in a round with peacock eye stitch or broomstick lace stitch is not as easy. You can't really work from the crown and then the way that we would do with an ordinary stitch. So what we'll need to do is we need to take a measurement for this hat, which will measure the circumference, whoops, round we go Hattie, of our head. Now Hattie is only a baby, and because my girls are at school I'm having to use her, so Hattie's circumference is only 17 inches because she's only little. But for us, this design, the one that I'm actually showing you, is going to be for a teenager to adult size, and I've already measured and taken the measurements for that, and the measurements are 22 inches or 56 centimeters. Now if you have a smaller or a larger head, then it might be a good idea to take your measurements and adjust them accordingly, and I'll tell you how to do that throughout the video for now. So let's start with the chains, how many chains we need. Okay, so first of all we need to make our slip knot. As always, the way I do it, there's a tutorial on how to do a slip knot, but I'm hoping that everybody knows how to do the slip knot by now. But like I said, I'll put the link down below if you're not too sure. The same as for the chain stitch, which is the next stitch we're going to be using. We need to chain 85 stitches, so 85 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you find that your head is slightly larger or slightly smaller than my measurements, then what you need to do is we're working in groups of 5, so you need to make sure that your chain is in groups of 5. So basically this is 85, so if your head is smaller it might be that it's 80 or 75 and so on. So that's basically what you'll need to do, because we're going to be working our pattern in groups of 5. So I'll see you at the end. I've had to change the background so we can see the stitches a lot better. But what we're going to do now is we're going to join our chain to make a round. And the way we do that is really simple. What we do is we join it to the first chain that we made. So we pop our hook into the 2 loops of the first chain and we're going to slip stitch. So let me get this little end out of the way, little end. And the way we do a slip stitch is we put our hook into the top of the first chain and pull it through the 2 stitches. Easy peasy. Now what we're going to do is we're going to continue all the way around our ring, our circle, and we're going to do that in single crochet. So in UK terms that would be a double crochet. So what we need to do, we need to chain 1, and that will be our first stitch, and for the next 84 stitches we need to single crochet. So into the 2 loops, oops, let me catch hold of my chain. So this is our foundation row, call this a foundation row. So into the 2 loops, catching hold of our yarn, pull it through the 2 loops. You have two loops on your crochet hook, pick up your yarn and pull it through the 2 loops, and that's basically a single crochet. And we're going to do that all the way around our chain, picking up 84 stitches until we get all the way back round again to our chain here, and then I'll show you what we need to do when we get to this point. So I'm nearly at the end of my foundation row. Basically I'm on 82 single crochets, so I'm just going to finish off. So 83, 84. So I've counted, it is actually 85 because I started counting 1 from the chain stitch. So what we need to do now is we need to go into the top of our chain stitch, into the two loops, putting a loop up through there and a loop through here. That's a slip stitch, and then we have a loop left on. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start working in our peacock eye stitch, or our broomstick lace, whatever you like to call it. So that's what we're going to do next. What we need to do now is, when we slip stitched into our chain just here, we'll put that slipped loop onto our dowel. How I do this is, you'll find your own way of doing it. I normally tuck it under my arm. The dowel is, you put your crochet hook through the loops, pulling your yarn over your hook, pulling through the 2 loops, so you have it there, and then popping it onto your dowel or needle. And we're going to do that all along. So that's 2. We have to pick up 85, so pulling through and onto our needle. And believe me, it becomes so much easier when you've done it for a few times. But it's so worth it. I just absolutely adore this stitch. As you can probably tell, because I've made created quite a few designs in this stitch now, and I never get bored of it. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next to it actually. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're actually going to be working in clusters of 5, and that'll make more sense to you later. So just keep pulling up, popping onto your dowel, pushing them up as you go along, through the 2 loops, picking up your yarn, pulling through, popping it onto your dowel. Very easy to see the loops as well, I find. And onto your dowel. Right, I'm going to see you at the end, last few stitches, and I'll catch up with you right at the end. Okay, so when working in the round, when we get to a certain point, because obviously we're not going to be able to get all of these stitches onto this dowel here. So the way that I've worked out, I mean, I've just sort of taught myself basically, but the best way I've found is to pull off those stitches, a little bit like when we've been doing our scarves or our neckerchiefs. Basically they won't go anywhere, these stitches, they're perfectly safe. So what I do is I pick up a few of the loops back onto the dowel, and I carry on working in the round, picking up the loops as I go on back onto my dowel, my plastic needle. Just the same as I was doing before, all the way around again. I normally find that it only takes, for this amount of chain, it only takes two times to do that. But if you want to have just like maybe 10 or 20 stitches and then take them off and 10 and 20 again, then that's up to you. But this is the best way that I've found anyway. So I'll see you when we get to just towards the end here, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so this is our end loop here. So we need to put our finger and thumb on that loop so that it doesn't go anywhere, that loop. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the next 5 loops here, and we need to pick up our yarn, pull through the 5 loops, pick up our yarn and slip stitch. Now that should be secure, that loop there now, so we don't need to worry about that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and into these 5 loops we're going to double crochet. So in UK terms that's a treble. So we've got our 2 chains, that counts as our first double crochet, or treble in UK terms. And we're going to do another 4 now. So picking up a loop on our hook, we're going to go through the 5 loops. Don't forget there's a tutorial down below regarding the peacock eye stitch or broomstick lace. So that's 1, pick up our yarn, through the 5 loops, pick up a yarn, you've got 3 loops on your needle, through the first 2 loops, pick up our yarn, through the second 2 loops. So that's 3, yarn over your needle, into your 5 loops, picking up your yarn, pulling it through, 3 loops on your hook, pick up your yarn through the first 2, pick up your yarn through the second 2, and so on. So should have our 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 double crochets into our 5 cluster, 5 clusters. Now we're going to pick up another 5 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 loops. Now this time slightly different, so we're just going to slip stitch into the 5 loops. So we're going to pick up our yarn, pull through all 5 loops, so you have the two loops on your hook. Sorry, we're not going to slip stitch, we're going to single crochet, and then we're going to pull our yarn through there, and that single crochet is our link into the next cluster. Now what we're going to do, rather than chaining, what we're going to do is we're going to do 5 double crochets into this 5 cluster. So 1, 2, 3. This yarn doesn't come through the middle of the ball, so I have to keep pulling it. And 1 more makes 5. Okay, so now we have 2 clusters, each with 1, 2, 3. Oh, I don't think I've done 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 1 more in this one. 5. So we have 2 clusters, each with 5 double crochets in. So now we're going to go into the next lot. I'm going to create another cluster. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops onto our crochet hook. Same as before, we're going to pick up our yarn, pull through all 5 loops, keeping the 2 loops on our hook and pulling through the 2 loops to make a single crochet. And then we're going to go ahead and connect that cluster, and then we're going to go ahead and make our 5 double crochets again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one 5. I'm having to pull this yarn, it's getting frustrating. Okay, and we're going to do this. So now we have our 3 clusters, basically our 3 broomstick lace, each 5 clusters, each with 5 double crochets in, and we're going to continue doing that all the way around. Careful not to twist again. Careful not to twist. We're going to go all the way around until we get to the last cluster, and then I'll see you at the... Right, so I'm almost at the end, so I'm just going to pick up my last 5 loops. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to slip stitch, single crochet into the top, and then 5 double crochets. So that's the last double crochet into that cluster, 5 clusters. Into that cluster, cluster of 5. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 clusters. Now what we're going to do is we're going to join this second row. So the way we do that is to put our crochet hook into the top of our chain. If you recall, we did like a 2 chain for our first double crochet, and we're just going to slip stitch. So slip our yarn through the 2 loops and then through that loop there, and that's our slip stitch. So we're joining those stitches. Now, as we did before, this is going to be our first loop. So this loop here is going to be our first loop, and now we're going to pick up our 1, 2, 3, 4 loops again across our first 5 cluster. We are not going to pick up this stitch here. Let me just zoom in a little bit because I want you to sort of see that. So if you could see, do you remember when we did our single crochet here, just to join each cluster, we don't pick up the loop from there, we just ignore that stitch there, because we're only going to be picking up 5 loops in each of the 5 double crochets. So we're going to make another cluster of 5. Okay, so we'll start off again then. So this is our third row. So what we're going to do is, as before, get our dowel, put it into our first loop, and exactly the same as we did before. We're going to be picking up, putting our hoop, our crochet hook through the 2 loops of each double crochet and putting the loop onto the needle. So into the top of the double crochet, picking the loop up and pulling it through, back onto the needle, putting our hook through, picking up our yarn, pulling through. And again, just to remind you, I do have a tutorial to show you how to work in the round to do complete broomstick lace, and also one just working in the row. Right, so now we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on there. So now we're going to start and go into our next. So we're ignoring this one here and we're going to go into our next cluster, and we're going to pick up 5 loops from the tops of our double crochets. Okay, right, so we're going to do that all the way around until we get to the end, and I'll see you at the end. Right, so I've finished picking all my loops up. So what I'm going to do is just take those loops off like that, pop my needle to the side. Now is I need to hold on to this loop here, the last loop. I just zoom in just for a minute so you can see. So as you can see, this loop here is my last loop that I've just pulled through. Now that can easily sort of be pulled because it's quite, so I'll just take it back to the right size. So what I need to do is I need to hold on to that loop there. Okay, so I'm holding my loop nice and secure. I'm going to pick up my 5 loops, the first 5 loops. Oops, let's just get them even. That's it. Keeping hold of that, just to make sure that we keep it secure, because we don't want it to pull out. You need to pick up your yarn and pull it through all 5 loops. Pick up your yarn again and pull it through the loop to make a single crochet. And then what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2, exactly how we started off our row each time. So this is going to be our 4th row now. So now this 2 chain counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to double crochet 4 more into this cluster. So 1, 2, 3, oops, I didn't do that right, 3, and 4. Okay. So just to show you, so this loop here that we've kept nice and secure won't be going anywhere now because we've actually used that already. So we've secured these loops, we've secured this cluster here, and this loop won't be pulled anymore because we're starting to work along in the round. So we're going to continue exactly the same as before, this row 4. So basically we're going to single crochet to join the cluster, and then this time obviously we haven't got our chain to do, so we're going to do 5 double crochets into this cluster. So I'm going to carry on all the way around until we get to the end, and I'll catch up with you at the end and we'll take it from there. Okay, so I've finished row 4 and we're going to connect the row 4 clusters together, so to make our round. So we're going to do that exactly the same way as we did before. So if you recall at the very beginning, so this is our first stitch here, and basically this was a single crochet with 2 chains. So we're going to go into the 2 loops at the top of the 2 chain, put our needle through there. We're going to yarn over the hook, pull through those 2 loops, and then pull through the 3rd loop, and that basically is a slip stitch, exactly the same as we've done before. Now then, what I need to say is that if you're wanting a slouchy look, then you need to add an extra round here. So you need to be doing like another set of these clusters, so loops and then the double crochets. So I will be carrying on because I'm not going to be doing a slouchy hat, but if you're wanting a slouchy look, then what you need to do is you need to add an extra 2 rows at this point, so the loops here and then the double crochet. I'm not going to do a slouchy, so I'm just going to continue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do rows 5 and 6 exactly the same as we've done rows 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So I'm going to go on to create another row, another 2 rows to make the peacock eye stitch, and I'll see you at the end of those 2 rows. Okay, so I've finished another 2 rows of pattern. So now I have 1, 2, 3 rows of pattern. So don't forget, if we wanted a slouchy, then we would have been adding an extra row in here. And now what we need to do, if you're wanting to have a slouchy, is to add another row here. So, and that'll be before our before we start decreasing. So we'll have at the end of our slouchy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. 6 rows of pattern. Okay, so I'm going to continue my last rows of pattern, so my last 2 rows before I start decreasing. So I'm going to go all the way around the last 2 rows, so that we've just done rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do rows 7 and 8, and then I'll catch up with you at the end of this because we're going to be starting our decreasing. Okay, so I've finished my 4 rows of pattern. As you can see, Abby, take your lolly out of your mouth, you little sausage. I've had to call Abby in for a little head tester. So Abby, if you just tilt your head down for me, please. Thank you, darling. So as you can see, it's the 4 rows of pattern. So there's 1, 2, 3 and 4. And now what we need to do is, because you can see it's coming up to the crown of the head, what we need to do now is we need to start decreasing. So that's what we're going to do. So if you just turn your head to the left, please, my darling. If you see that strand of yarn here, basically what I've done is I've connected the 2 clusters as I would have done before to make it into the round, and I'll take you from there and we'll start our decreasing to take the hat right up to the top of the crown here. Okay, thank you, Abby. You can eat your lolly now. Yay. As you've been doing for the last 4 rows of 4 lots of pattern, we're just going to pull all our loops up. So I'm going to start pulling my loops up, and I'll meet you right at the end, and then we'll start our decreasing. Okay, so I've pulled up all my loops. This one here is my last loop. So as always, I'm going to secure that with my finger and thumb. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up 5 loops. So I've got my 5 loops. I'm going to do exactly what we've been doing before. So picking up our yarn, pulling it through all 5 loops, picking up our yarn and pulling through. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to release that loop there because that's nice and secure now. Now what I'm going to do now, just sorry to go out to camera there, I just had to pull my yarn up, is I'm going to, so this is our first double crochet here, so I'm going to double crochet another 2 double crochets into here. So 1, 2, so effectively I've decreased by 2 because now I only have 3 double crochets in 5 loops. So I'm going to pick up 5 loops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going to yarn round my hook, pull through, single crochet to join the cluster, then yarn round for the double crochet, and I'm going to do 3 double crochets into these 5 loops. So 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do this all the way around, exactly the same as before in the same pattern. So picking up my 5 loops and crocheting 3 double crochets into each of the 5 loops that I've picked up. So I'm going to meet you at the end, and then we'll see where we go from there. Okay, so I finished the end of that row. I've joined the clusters together to make it a round, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my loops in each of the 3 double crochets. So this counts as my first loop. I'm going to be picking up my loop from this double crochet and this double crochet. So let me show you. So 1, 2, so that's our 3 loops from that cluster. As always, we miss this little loop here, this stitch here, and we pick up our loops, 3 loops from here. So 1, 2, 3. So instead of having like our clusters of 5, we now have clusters of 3. So I'm going to carry on picking up my 3 loops from each of the clusters, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I've picked up all my stitches and all my loops. Now, as usual, I need to secure that loop there whilst we pick up our next lot of loops. And this time what we're going to do to decrease is we're actually going to pick up 6 loops. Okay, so we're going to pull them nice and taut. So we've got our 6 loops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on there. Picking up our loop and pulling through all 6. Going to pick up our loop again, creating our single crochet and chaining 2, 1 and 2. And we can let go of our loop now because that's going to be absolutely fine. And now what we're going to do is we're going to double crochet 2 double crochets, 2 not other double crochets into this cluster. So now we have 3 double crochets in effect because the chain counts as 1 double crochet. And now we're going to go along and we're going to pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again. And if you can see, we've got like it's the two clusters, so 2 clusters of 3. We're going to make them into 1 cluster of 3. So we're going to pick up our yarn and pull it through all of the 6 loops, picking up our yarn, making a single crochet to connect the cluster, and then this time we're going to double crochet 3 because we don't have our chain to think about. So 1, 2 and 3. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this all the way around, working in our round, picking up our 6 loops all the way around and working 3 double crochets into all 6 loops. And I'll see you when I get to the end again. So I'm almost at the end. I have 3 loops left. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to double crochet 3 into these 3 loops. You can't really see the difference once you've got your hat on, especially if these are at the back. So 1, 2, 3, and then we'll just connect that together, this row, so just at the top of the chain there, pulling our loop through and then through, slip stitch, and then that is that row connected. Okay, let's just have a little look then. So this is our hat so far, and basically we're almost at the end. So we have this quite a small little bit here, so we're just going to decrease one more time, and then that should be the right height of our hat, the right width of our hat. And then we'll see where we are from there, and we'll try it on and see what it looks like. Okay, so what we need to do is pull up our loops again. So we'll be pulling up 3 loops in each of the 3 double crochets, and I'll see you at the end, and then we'll do our decreasing row again. Just a quick note that obviously the less stitches you need to pull up, the more frequently you need to take your dowel out, slip it back into 3 of the stitches, and then carry on pulling your loops up, because it will get quite tight. Okay, so I've finished that row. I've pulled all my loops up as usual, securing the last loop with finger and thumb. And what we're going to do for our decrease row this time is the same as the last time. We're going to pick up 6 again. Oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keeping my finger on that loop there, so I don't want it to. Right, so pulling them nice and taut and picking up a loop, pulling it through all 6 loops, picking up the yarn on our needle again, on our hook again, pulling it through to make a single crochet. We can let go of that loop now, and as always, chain 2 to make a double crochet. We're going to create another double crochet, and then we're going to move along. We're going to pick up 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's double check. 3, 6, yep. So pull them taut, loop around the hook, pulling through, single crochet this time, loop around the hook, and we're going to do 2 double crochet. So 1, 2, and we're going to be picking up 6 loops and working 2 double crochets into each of the 6 loops, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, so we've come to our last 3 loops, the same that we did before. We're going to join the cluster with a single crochet, and then we're just going to double crochet 2 double crochets into the 3 loops. 1, 2. Then we're going to join all the clusters together into a round, little tiny now, at the very top of the 2 chain, like so. Slip stitch, that's it. Okay, so there's our little hole here. We fastened off here, so I need to thread my needle. Like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up all the double crochets. So I'm going to be going through the 2 loops of each double crochet, the tops of them. So 1, 2, 3, and you can see it's starting to close up now, can't you? 4, 5, 6, 7, another 2, should be 9, 7, yep, 8, one more, where are you? Oh, there you 9. So that's lovely fastened, there's no hole in there now. So there's the top bit there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my needle through a couple of times. Don't pull it too tight, just to fasten off that yarn, like so. Okay, I'm going to snip that off, and oops, a bit more. And there we have one finished broomstick lace beanie. I'm going to ask my daughter to try it on to show you now. I've got 2 girls, so I've actually got another one here so they can share them. Okay then. Okay, my finished beanies with my 2 little girls. Katie, say hello.
Hello.
Abby, say hello. Hello. So these are 2 beanies. The only difference in them is, and they're both the adults' sizes, but I think it fits you quite nicely as well actually, Katie. But if you have a look, I've done 2 single crochets for this here. For here, you can see there's 2 single crochets. Is that funny, Kate?
Yeah.
Abby, I've only done the 1 single crochet around the rim. So, what do you think of your beanies, girls?
They're great.
You love them?
I like the colour.
Okay. They're lush. Abby, I'm going to ask you in a minute if you would try on the slouchy version to show everybody, and then we'll say toodle pip. Okay? All right then. So, Katie, you can keep yours on for a minute, and Abby's going to change. Hello again. So this is Abby in their slouchy version. Abby, can you turn to the left, please? Thank you. So she's got quite long hair, and she's got all her hair tucked into this one. So this is when you add the 2 extra rows. I mean, I think I've actually added a couple of extra rows to this one, but you can do as many as you want depending on how thick your hair is. But how lush does it look? It's oh, that's a northeast term from the UK, lush. So how lovely does it look? It really suits her, and Abby's actually devised a new way of wearing this hat as well, which I'll show you. 2 seconds. Okay, so our Abby, this is still the slouchy version, so our Abby said that we could wear it more like a tammy hat. So she said that if we fold it down, we could put maybe a brooch or something on this end here and just wear it like a 1930s tammy hat, which, Abby, you love vintage stuff, don't you? So it's really lovely, isn't it? Good idea, Abs. Yeah. Okay, girls, get in there, Katie. And what do we say to everybody? Toodle pip!